Punctuality is more than arriving on time. It is a form of self-respect and a declaration that your life has order, intention, and inner discipline. When Viktor Frankl spoke about finding meaning, he emphasized the power of choosing one's attitude and directing one's actions with responsibility. Being punctual is one of the clearest ways to express that responsibility in daily life. It shows that you value your commitments, your time, and the time of those around you. It is a habit that silently communicates maturity, reliability, and the determination to govern your inner world. Through punctuality, you begin shaping a mindset rooted in clarity and purpose. At its core, punctuality is an exercise in self-mastery. It forces you to plan ahead, anticipate obstacles, and create structured habits that support your goals. When you decide to be punctual, you are choosing to live proactively rather than reactively. This shift alone can transform how you navigate your days. You stop allowing stress and chaos to dominate your routines and instead cultivate rhythm, predictability, and a sense of inner grounding. This proactive posture generates confidence because it restores a feeling of control over your own life, something Frankl believed was essential for building meaning. Punctuality also strengthens the psychological foundation of trust. Each time you keep a promise to yourself to wake up on time, to start your work without delay, to show up prepared, you reinforce your belief in your own capability. This inner trust becomes the root of self-confidence, because confidence is not built through external praise, but through consistent self-honoring actions. When you are punctual with your commitments, you prove to yourself that your intentions hold weight. This is how deep personal credibility is built. A useful analogy is to think of punctuality as an anchor. Ships drifting in turbulent waters must rely on a strong anchor to stay grounded. Your days are filled with demands, distractions, and emotional turbulence. But punctuality anchors your behavior to your values. It gives your day structure, making each task feel more manageable and each goal more reachable. That anchor then becomes a quiet force that supports your stability and enhances your sense of identity. One practical exercise to develop this habit is the 2-minute margin rule. Plan to arrive at any appointment, task, or responsibility at least 2 minutes earlier than necessary. This small margin reduces anxiety and trains your mind to anticipate and prepare. Over time, those 2 minutes expand into a habit of reliability that permeates your entire lifestyle. Punctuality becomes less about minutes on a clock and more about the mindset you cultivate. With each small commitment honored, you strengthen the architecture of meaning in your everyday life, allowing discipline to evolve into a guiding principle rather than a forced requirement.
Punctuality acts as a powerful filter that reveals what you truly value. When you consistently show up late, procrastinate, or rush through your responsibilities, it signals unconscious priorities that are misaligned with your goals. Frankl taught that meaning emerges when your actions flow from your highest inner values. The act of being punctual forces you to confront yourself. What matters to you? What are you choosing to honor? These questions encourage introspection, and introspection creates alignment. Once your actions match your values, life begins to feel more coherent, stable, and purposeful. Another essential dimension of punctuality is the discipline it builds in the mind. When you commit to being on time, you train your brain to resist impulsive tendencies. You begin identifying which behaviors support your long-term vision and which temptations only offer momentary comfort. This is where punctuality shifts from a simple habit into a transformative psychological tool. It brings clarity to your days and helps you recognize the patterns that either empower or sabotage you. Over time, this sharpened awareness becomes a skill that supports growth in every area of life. Punctuality also enhances concentration because it forces you to plan your tasks more deliberately. When you give yourself a clear start time, your mind becomes more organized and your environment follows. Clutter decreases, rushed decisions diminish, and your actions become more intentional. This creates a mental state that Frankl saw as essential for personal fulfillment: presence. When you show up on time, mentally and physically, you experience life more consciously. This presence enriches your interactions and deepens your connection with your work, relationships, and routines. A helpful metaphor is to think of punctuality as tuning an instrument. A musician cannot play harmoniously if the instrument is misaligned. Your daily routines function the same way. When punctuality fine-tunes your time, your day plays in harmony. Tasks connect seamlessly, energy flows more consistently, and you feel in rhythm with your responsibilities, rather than overwhelmed by them. Harmony makes discipline feel natural instead of forced. To integrate punctuality more effectively, create a 3-step daily structure: intention, preparation, and execution. Intention sets your purpose for the day. Preparation organizes your tasks. Execution follows through with punctual behavior. This sequence develops mental accountability because it turns your day into a conscious choice rather than a passive reaction. Each step reinforces the others, and soon the habit becomes automatic. The more you practice, the more confident you become in managing your time with clarity and consistency. Ultimately, punctuality brings you closer to yourself. It helps you realize that discipline is not an external force imposed upon you, but an internal expression of who you want to become. When that realization takes root, punctuality evolves from a demanding rule into a liberating personal standard that stabilizes your days and strengthens your sense of meaning. Developing punctuality requires understanding not just the habit, but the psychology behind consistency. Humans naturally follow the path of least resistance, which often leads to procrastination and disorganization. To overcome this, you must create systems that minimize friction and maximize commitment. One effective method is the concept of environmental design, shaping your surroundings to support punctual behavior. When your environment makes it easier to prepare, organize, and act on time, discipline becomes much more natural. Your space starts working for you instead of against you, which transforms punctuality from a struggle into a smooth routine. Your internal environment matters just as much. Thoughts, emotions, and beliefs play significant roles in how consistently you show up. Frankl emphasized that meaning comes from the attitude you choose, even when circumstances are challenging. Punctuality mirrors this principle by demanding that you align your emotional impulses with your deeper values. When you honor time, you also honor your identity. You begin seeing yourself as someone reliable, responsible, and directed. This shift strengthens your relationship with yourself because punctuality becomes a daily affirmation of your own worth. Another key element is the emotional reward linked to punctuality. Every time you arrive on time or complete a task when you said you would, your brain releases a sense of satisfaction. This positive reinforcement builds momentum. Over time, you begin to crave the feeling of completion and reliability, making punctuality easier to maintain. The more consistent you are, the more your self-image evolves. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and begin seeing yourself as someone who does. This identity shift becomes a powerful internal motivator. You can also enhance punctuality through micro goals. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire day, focus on small commitments. 5 minutes earlier for one task,
a tidy workspace for one routine, or a fixed start time for one habit. These micro goals reduce overwhelm and increase your success rate. When you accumulate small victories, your confidence expands. This mirrors Frankl's idea that meaning is built through small, purposeful actions repeated over time. One powerful analogy is to view punctuality as planting seeds. Each punctual act is a seed of discipline, clarity, and purpose. You may not see the results immediately, but growth is happening beneath the surface. Eventually, the garden of your habits transforms, and your life reflects the consistency you've been cultivating. The key is patience and faith in the process. To strengthen the habit further, develop a personal accountability ritual. Review your day each evening, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Identify what supported your punctuality and what interfered with it. This reflective practice develops awareness and ensures that each day becomes an improvement upon the last. With time, punctuality becomes woven into your identity, stabilizing your routine and preparing you for deeper forms of discipline and meaning. Consistency in punctuality becomes transformative when you connect it to a deeper sense of purpose. Many people attempt to be punctual through force alone, relying on willpower that quickly fades. But when punctuality is tied to meaning, it becomes self-sustaining. Viktor Frankl believed that when a person understands their why, they can endure almost any how. The same principle applies to time discipline. Once you understand why being punctual elevates your life, it stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like an extension of who you are becoming. Your daily schedule turns into a canvas where you express responsibility, self-respect, and intention. One powerful technique for rooting punctuality and purpose is value association. Take each recurring task in your life, work, studies, relationships, self-care, and consciously link it to the value it represents. Arriving on time to work becomes an expression of integrity. Starting your morning routine without delay becomes an expression of self-care. Honoring appointments becomes an expression of respect. When actions are tied to values, you create emotional meaning behind every moment of punctuality. This emotional connection fuels discipline more effectively than pressure or guilt ever could. Another essential insight is understanding the cumulative power of punctuality. A single punctual moment may seem small, but repeated over weeks and months, it creates profound changes in identity and capability. Think of punctuality as a compound investment. Each action contributes to a long-term result that is far greater than the sum of its parts. Small, consistent efforts like waking up 5 minutes earlier or preparing your materials the night before gradually shape a lifestyle of order and self-respect. These incremental improvements create momentum, reinforcing the belief that you are capable of living with structure and purpose. Using visual cues can also support this transformation. Vision boards, calendars, progress trackers, or even simple sticky notes serve as reminders of the identity you are building. This technique works because the brain responds strongly to visual reinforcement. When you see representations of your goals and values every day, punctuality becomes less of a mental effort and more of a natural alignment with your environment. Visual cues anchor your focus, helping you stay committed even when motivation fluctuates. A useful analogy is to imagine your life as a train route. Each stop represents a responsibility or commitment. When the train runs on time, everything flows smoothly. Connections align, delays are avoided, and energy remains stable. But when one stop is delayed, everything after it becomes rushed, stressful, and disordered. Punctuality ensures your life's train runs on schedule, preserving your mental clarity and emotional balance. It creates a rhythm that supports productivity, fulfillment, and self-trust. Through these methods, punctuality becomes more than a clock-based habit.
it evolves into a guiding philosophy rooted in purpose, identity, and emotional meaning. When this happens, the practice becomes lighter, more intuitive, and deeply woven into your daily life, preparing you for even greater layers of discipline and intentional living.
To strengthen punctuality further, it is essential to understand the hidden psychological barriers that pull you away from disciplined time habits. Many people struggle with punctuality, not because they lack desire, but because they underestimate the influence of mental resistance. Procrastination, emotional avoidance, perfectionism, and fear of failure all contribute to chronic lateness. When these forces operate in the background, they sabotage attempts at discipline. Recognizing and disarming these patterns is crucial because punctuality is not only a scheduling skill, it is a reflection of your emotional landscape. By addressing these deeper barriers, you build a stronger foundation for lasting change. Procrastination often manifests when tasks feel overwhelming or ambiguous. To counter this, break tasks into smaller, clearly defined actions. The brain finds clarity reassuring. When the next step is simple, resistance decreases. For example, instead of prepare for tomorrow, break it into lay out clothes, organize materials, and set alarms. This microstructuring reduces friction and makes punctuality easier to sustain. The easier the process becomes, the more likely you are to follow through. Emotional avoidance is another significant obstacle. Sometimes lateness is a subconscious attempt to avoid discomfort, whether it's responsibility, expectations, or challenging conversations. To overcome this, adopt a practice of emotional naming. When you feel resistance, identify the emotion behind it: fear, uncertainty, boredom, or self-doubt. Naming the emotion reduces its grip and restores your capacity to act intentionally. This technique empowers you to move forward despite discomfort, strengthening your self-command. Perfectionism also contributes to lateness because it traps you in cycles of over-preparation and hesitation. A powerful strategy is embracing good enough completion. This mindset encourages action rather than idealized planning. When you give yourself permission to perform tasks imperfectly but promptly, you gain momentum. This momentum builds confidence, which in turn supports punctuality. Fear of failure can delay your actions as well. To dissolve this fear, use cognitive reframing. Instead of viewing punctuality as a test of competence, view it as a practice of growth. Every punctual act becomes evidence that you are improving, and every lapse becomes a learning opportunity. This perspective reduces anxiety and encourages long-term commitment. A helpful metaphor for overcoming internal barriers is to imagine your mind as a crowded room. Each emotion and belief is a voice competing for attention. Punctuality requires becoming the conductor of that room, guiding each voice with intention. When you manage the inner noise, discipline becomes quieter, smoother, and more natural. By addressing these psychological barriers directly, punctuality stops being an uphill battle and becomes a manageable, empowering habit. This emotional clarity strengthens your ability to show up consistently and prepares you for the deeper transformation that disciplined time management can create in every aspect of your life. Building punctuality into your daily life requires a combination of strategy, practice, and self-awareness. Once you understand the inner and outer forces that influence your behavior, the next step is to create a personal system that supports consistent action. Systems work because they reduce decision fatigue. When you no longer rely on motivation alone, discipline becomes a built-in structure rather than a daily struggle. This is the foundation of long-term punctuality, crafting routines that carry you forward even when willpower is low. One effective strategy is implementing time anchors,
fixed moments in the day that remain non-negotiable. These anchors might include waking up, starting work, taking breaks, or beginning nightly wind-down routines. Time anchors create predictable rhythms, and routines built around them become easier to maintain. The mind thrives on patterns. Once it recognizes a rhythm, it adapts quickly. Complement this with pre-action rituals. A ritual is a small behavior that signals the transition from one state to another. For example, drinking a glass of water before starting work, stretching before leaving the house, or reviewing a checklist before beginning a task. Rituals create psychological readiness and make it easier to begin activities on time. To further solidify punctuality, use the method of reverse planning. Instead of planning when you want to arrive, plan when you must begin preparing. If an event is at 3 p.m. and you need 30 minutes to get ready, the start point becomes 2:30 p.m. Reverse planning reduces last-minute stress and helps you anticipate variables that could cause delays. Digital and physical tools also enhance punctuality. Calendars, alarms, habit trackers, and visual schedules offer guidance and accountability. These tools work best when used intentionally rather than reactively. Instead of setting reminders out of panic, integrate them into your planning process. When used consistently, these tools turn your schedule into a supportive framework rather than a source of pressure. A powerful analogy is to imagine your day as a river. Without structure, the water flows chaotically, spilling over its banks. But with a channel, the river flows steadily and purposefully. Your routines act as the channel that shapes the flow of your time. The more defined the channel, the more productive and centered your day becomes. Finally, incorporate daily reflection to evaluate your progress. Reflection strengthens awareness and helps you correct course quickly. Ask yourself what supported your punctuality today and what undermined it. This reflective practice keeps your goals alive in your mind and turns each day into an opportunity for improvement. By developing these strategies into a coherent system, punctuality transitions from a scattered effort into a stable, dependable lifestyle. Through structure, ritual, and awareness, you lay the groundwork for deeper discipline, greater meaning, and stronger self-leadership. Punctuality gains extraordinary power when you understand how deeply it influences your relationships, reputation, and social identity. People form impressions based on consistency, and punctuality is one of the strongest signals of reliability. When you show up on time, you communicate respect for others' boundaries, commitments, and emotional energy. This small act becomes a powerful demonstration of character. It shows maturity, responsibility, and integrity, qualities that elevate trust in both personal and professional environments. Viktor Frankl emphasized that meaning is often discovered through relational responsibility, and punctuality is one of the simplest ways to honor that responsibility daily. In professional life, punctuality becomes a gateway skill that opens doors to opportunity. Employers and partners rely on individuals who deliver consistently. Being on time makes you someone others can depend on, and this dependability often leads to more responsibilities, leadership positions, and long-term growth. Punctuality enhances your reputation because it proves you take your work seriously. Even in competitive environments, punctuality becomes a quiet but powerful advantage that sets you apart. It builds a strong foundation of credibility, which becomes an invaluable asset throughout your career. In personal relationships, punctuality strengthens empathy. When you respect someone's time, you tell them they're valued. This small gesture deepens bonds because it creates a sense of safety and trust. People who feel respected respond with more openness, warmth, and cooperation. A relationship where both individuals honor each other's time naturally becomes more harmonious and balanced. When punctuality becomes a shared value, communication improves, conflicts reduce, and mutual appreciation grows. A helpful metaphor for the relational power of punctuality is the idea of the heartbeat. Trust in relationships functions like a steady rhythm. Reliability keeps that rhythm healthy. When punctuality is inconsistent, the rhythm becomes unstable, creating tension and uncertainty. But when you practice time discipline consistently, the relational heartbeat stays strong, allowing trust to flourish with ease. To strengthen punctuality within relationships, practice transparent communication. If delays arise, communicate early. If plans change, clarify expectations. This practice reduces misunderstandings and reinforces your commitment to reliability. Another effective strategy is making punctuality an intentional part of your relational values. Write it down as a principle. I respect the time of those I care about. This simple act signals seriousness and embeds the habit into your sense of identity. Finally, understand that punctuality magnifies emotional intelligence. It requires self-awareness, empathy, and the ability to anticipate the needs of others. When you show up prepared and on time, you demonstrate that you have considered more than just your own perspective. This selflessness strengthens your emotional maturity and deepens your capacity to build meaningful connections. Through punctuality, you not only elevate yourself, but also uplift the quality of your relationships and the trust others place in you. As your punctuality strengthens, it naturally shapes how you manage energy, focus, and productivity. Time is not only a measurement, it is an emotional and cognitive resource. When you are punctual, you protect your mental clarity, and this organization leads to higher quality work and deeper fulfillment. One of the biggest advantages is the reduction of cognitive load. When your schedule is predictable, your brain no longer wastes energy juggling chaotic decisions. Instead, it channels attention into meaningful tasks, allowing you to enter states of deep focus more easily. This clarity supports what psychologists call flow, a state of complete immersion and heightened performance. Punctuality enhances flow by eliminating unnecessary distractions. When you begin tasks on time, your mind transitions smoothly into concentration. Over time, this ability becomes a competitive edge. You complete tasks faster, with more precision, and with less emotional exhaustion. This creates a cycle of high performance that reinforces your confidence in your own capabilities. Another important benefit is emotional stability. Constant lateness generates stress, guilt, and anxiety. It creates internal chaos that disturbs your peace of mind. But punctuality establishes mental order. When your actions align with your intentions, you experience emotional alignment. This reduces tension and cultivates inner calm. With calmness comes patience, better decision-making, and improved resilience. Frankl believed that meaning grows strongest under conditions of inner stability, and punctuality nurtures that stability day by day. A helpful analogy is to imagine your energy as a battery. When you are disorganized or late, your battery drains constantly. But punctuality acts as a charger. It replenishes your energy by removing unnecessary friction. Tasks become lighter, transitions become smoother, and you conserve mental power for what truly matters. This energy preservation allows you to pursue goals with greater enthusiasm and persistence. An effective exercise is energy mapping. Track how your energy rises and falls throughout the day, then align punctual routines with your strongest energy periods. Morning people can anchor their most important tasks early, while night-oriented individuals can build structure around their later peak hours. This alignment enhances both punctuality and performance because it respects your natural rhythm. Punctuality also fosters healthier physical habits. When your schedule is structured, you gain the time and clarity needed to prioritize sleep, nutrition, hydration, and movement. These physical practices enhance cognitive function, forming a virtuous cycle where punctuality and health support each other. As you master punctuality's influence on performance, you develop a lifestyle anchored in strength and clarity. Productivity becomes less forced and more natural. This transformation elevates not only your output, but also your sense of fulfillment, preparing you for the highest level of inner meaning and disciplined living. The true power of punctuality emerges when it becomes a long-term philosophy rather than a short-term effort. Once punctuality is part of your identity, it evolves into a broader sense of life discipline, purpose, and meaning. Viktor Frankl taught that every individual is responsible for shaping their own existence through the choices they make. Punctuality embodies this principle by transforming ordinary moments into expressions of intentional living. It becomes a daily reminder that your life is not random, it is directed. With each commitment honored, you reinforce your role as the author of your own time. Long-term punctuality generates profound self-respect. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you strengthen your inner narrative of competence. This positive self-talk becomes a psychological foundation that influences your behavior, decisions, and emotional resilience. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This is the core of self-mastery. When you trust yourself deeply, you no longer fear challenges, responsibilities, or uncertainties. You meet life with clarity and strength. Another long-term effect is life coherence. When punctuality structures your days, your goals begin aligning naturally. You become more selective, intentional, and focused. You waste less time on distractions and invest more time in meaningful actions. This coherence creates a clear direction for your future. You no longer feel scattered or overwhelmed. You feel grounded. Your purpose becomes easier to recognize, and your values become easier to live out. A helpful metaphor for long-term punctuality is the construction of a cathedral. Cathedrals are not built overnight. They are built stone by stone with patience and unwavering vision. Your punctual actions are those stones. Each one contributes to a grander structure, your character. Over time, that character stands tall, resilient, and meaningful. The discipline that began with arriving on time evolves into a life philosophy that shapes everything you do. To maintain this long-term discipline, practice continuous renewal. Review your values often, set new goals when necessary, and allow your routines to adjust with your growth. This renewal keeps punctuality alive, dynamic, and relevant. When routines evolve with you, they remain effective rather than rigid. You should also celebrate progress. Acknowledging your growth reinforces your motivation and deepens your sense of meaning. Whether it is a week of consistent punctuality or a major shift in lifestyle, each victory deserves recognition. This positive reinforcement becomes a powerful fuel for long-term consistency. Ultimately, punctuality transforms your existence because it teaches you to live deliberately. It gives structure to your purpose, strength to your actions, and meaning to your days. By embodying punctuality, you cultivate discipline not through pressure, but through identity. You become someone who leads life rather than someone pulled by life. This is the essence of meaningful living. choosing actions that reflect who you are and who you aspire to become. Through punctuality, you craft a life of integrity, clarity, and purpose. One moment, one decision, one discipline at a time.